What's up, guys? Thank you for tuning in to the Uncommon Mindset podcast. Today, I am joined by the incredible, the inspiring Coach John Mosley. I'll just give you a brief background on who Coach Mosley is. Most of you might recognize him from the latest season of Last Chance U, the first basketball edition on Netflix. He's the head coach of East Los Angeles College, the Huskies, and is named one of 50 most impactful coaches in JUCO men's basketball. This season is his ninth season as men's head basketball coach, where he has led the program to 8 straight CCCAA state playoff appearances. This guy is not only a coach, but also a father figure to his players and is definitely an uncommon individual. It's such an honor to have you on the podcast today.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Rod. You know what? I never did this for any type of recognition, or I mean, something we just us as coaches. I've done it for 20 years now, and it's just something that's a passion of mine. I'm at the community college, and I get a lot of young men that kind of have stumbled along the way, whether it's their academics or they're just not ready for the 4-year university. So they stumble our way, and a lot of them come from I'm right in the hub of Los Angeles and South Central and deep in the city, and so a lot of them come from those areas and some broken areas, and then some may reach out to me from other areas, and I kind of have a heart for them. They're really good ball players. Something just happened along the way to prevent them. So that's just something that I do, and never meant for it to be this big, but they cold called me and asked me about the show, and so I did the show, and now it's like everybody's like, "Oh, this is great." There's thousands and millions of coaches doing the same thing, though.
Of course, yeah, no, definitely. We'll touch more on the show in just a second. I just want to ask you first of all, what was your upbringing like?
Well, you know what? I grew up in the inner city. I was very fortunate. I had my father at home and my mom, and so I was very fortunate. But that still didn't. I was still surrounded in South Central by a low socioeconomic situation, and the city I grew up in was, there were gangs and there were drugs and different things like that. So I was fortunate that as I was drifting into that world, I mean, there's a lot of times what people don't realize is when you're in that world, when that's what you grow up in, that's all you know, and then you gravitate to things that aren't, that aren't going to allow you to be successful, that'll cause you into crime and different things like that. So I grew up around that. Fortunately, I had some outlets. I had basketball, and then I had my family, and then ultimately, just growing up in the church with my family. Um, that kind of helped me. I always had those seeds planted in me that I kind of wanted to do better. I grew up with friends who some drifted certain ways, some went to jail, some, are gone. They were murdered or different things like that. But I grew up that way, and essentially, I had to kind of I got a backhand slap if I wasn't in church or singing in church. So um, but for me to have a conviction, it was a little bit later on for me to have that conviction to kind of live right. But I kind of grew up in the church, and I grew up in the inner city, so it was kind of all jumbled together, and I had to figure it out as well.
Yeah. When did you actually get into basketball and then go into coaching as well? Like, what made you go into coaching after basketball?
You know what? I was younger, and as I was younger, growing up, I mean, out here in Los Angeles, it's the Lakers and Dodgers and the football and Raiders. So I think the popular thing out at my time, and I grew up watching Magic Johnson for the Los Angeles Lakers, and so that was kind of inspiring to me. Everywhere you went here in Los Angeles, it was basketball. Everybody was playing basketball, and so I was pretty good at it, and so I grew up doing that. But it wasn't until I got to high school I realized, okay, I could be pretty good and maybe get a college scholarship to a university, which I did. So, it went through my life growing up with friends, and they kind of drifted and went a way that they shouldn't, and I kind of drifted towards basketball. And as I went towards basketball, had my college years, played high school, went to a community college, a 2-year college, and then I went to. So I know the experiences that they're going through. Then I went to a 4-year university, traveled a little bit, did missions trips, and then played professionally a little bit. Um, and I had one class to finish. Just interested as I finished playing basketball in college, and then I went and traveled and did missions trips. But I had one class to finish to get my degree. And my now to this day, my mentor, he said, "Hey, if you come here, I'll I'll pay for that one class for you to finish, and just sit on the bench with me. Just sit on the bench and help me out with coaching." And I never really was thought I was interested in coaching, but I said, "Yeah, you know what? I'm still young. Let me go. Just it'd be great to be around college basketball again." And I ended up liking it. I started to see the impact when you look at it from a coach's perspective, when you start to look at what the coaches see. So before, I used to see what a player sees and how I view the coach. But then once I got on the coaching side and I saw how my mentor, how he taught me and what his thought process is in terms of coaching, I said, wow, I didn't know all these things when I was a player, but now I'm sitting on the coaching side. Now I'm in the coach's office and we're in a coaching meeting. I'm understanding why he did certain things and the impact that he's having on young people. And I thought that was impressionable to me. And so I finished the class and I ended up staying on and I got a salary for it and it took off from there. But when I went over and I would do clinics, that's really what I wanted to do. I wanted to just kind of share my message with young people and inspire young people. And I wanted to minister to young people through the game of basketball. And my intentions was never to be a college coach. It was just to say, take the game of basketball, bring them all together. I started a group called Save Through Hoops. And on the weekends, I would say, hey, I'll do a free basketball clinic. You guys come out. I would teach them basketball skills. And then ultimately, I would share my faith with them. And so as I shared my faith, that was something that was inspirational to me. But at the same time, I was doing the college coaching with my coach. And then all of a sudden, I just spiraled into this coaching career.
That's incredible. Yeah. And I know that you went from obviously coaching Division One, Division One to JUCO, right? And that just shows the type of person you are, and you were trying to provide value for the kids. It's not just about, the money and everything like that, right? And that's very inspirational that I took out from the series. So just touching on the series, of course, I got to ask you, what was it like having cameramen follow you all the time? Was the atmosphere like different because obviously there were people following you around and filming you, or was it still like similar?
Well, you know what? Not really. It didn't take that long to get used to. I'm looking at maybe once or twice, and then after that, we kind of got used to it. I tell people, I feel like because of my faith and because of what I believe in, I feel like I have a camera around me the whole time. I mean, I'm sitting in the room here with nobody here right now, and I feel like I'm being watched and I'm held accountable. If I'm gonna say that I'm somebody and I'm a certain way, then I need to live that out, whether people are around me or or whether no one is or isn't around me. I still need to live that out. And so it's just a lifestyle that we live out. And I was kind of unapologetic at how I lived out my faith and about how I carry myself. All I had to do was be authentic. And a lot of people said, hey, just be yourself. And it'll bode well. And it did, it did. I was myself. I'm really hard nosed. I'm intense, but at the same time, I'm gonna try to do things with integrity, which is my main mission, is to make sure we do things with integrity so that we send the right message to all these young people. So with that, the young men, they all followed my lead, and I think they were authentic too. So any way they acted out and all that, you know what? I knew they acted out, but there were other issues that were going on in their lives, and you just have to be patient. You have to be patient, and you have to understand that they have these issues going on, and a lot of people couldn't see all of the things that were going on. They say, man, you really have patience with them. Well, the reason why I have patience, because it stems from compassion, having the compassion for each and every one of those young men, because I know what they're going through, and they need they need a level of patience to help them get through with what they're going through. And basketball is just a vehicle to bring them in and allow them to have a space that they're comfortable in. But at the same time, off the court, I can kind of teach them some things to change their lives, to change who they are as people and how to respond better. You know, they're great performers, which is why I'm like, hey, we talk about basketball reveals. Okay. It revealed that they're great. They're great people to me because I can see the way they perform. We just have to change some of their responses to adversity. And that was the main issue, but yeah.
Yeah, no, that's amazing. And I remember you said in the show that you said you see yourself in them, and that's really powerful to hear from a coach, say that to the players. I think that's what made you very, very patient with them, right? Because you know what they're going through. They've got, some of the stories I heard, I was getting very emotional just watching it. And it's amazing to see that they are actually trying their best. And I read this thing just before we actually came on the podcast. It's an African ancient proverb where they said the enemy within, if there's no enemy within, the enemy outside can't harm you. And like the mind is the most powerful force. And I really believe that's what you instilled in those players. Mindset is key, because there was a lot of times, if people haven't watched the show, by the way, there's a lot of times where the players like, Joe, he'd walk out because of anger and stuff, but they'd always come back. They'd always come back to your team because you're the coach, right? And that was incredible to watch. Yeah, no, that's amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I got to ask, what, when the players came into the team, what was the end goal for them? Like, what did you want for them to achieve?
Well, I love to say, hey, we want you to be where you never thought you would be. So when you walk through the door, a lot of the guys kind of have lost hope a little bit, and they're just kind of, like, well, he said he's going to help us get through. If you do everything that we ask you to do, then you have a better chance. So I almost guarantee it. You can't guarantee anything because you can also, there's some situations where you could do everything possible and it still doesn't work out. But I believe because of my obedience and my faith, I believe like, hey, everything we do, you guys are covered by my obedience to God. So if I'm obedient to God, then I believe that all of you guys will be blessed if you do what you're supposed to do, if you make a reasonable commitment to this program. And all those guys, what I want them to do is just come in here and get something better than who knows if they're going to get a scholarship. Normally they do. Normally they get their degree, their 2-year degree, and move on to a 4-year. But what I want them to know is that, hey, we got to learn how to respond the right way. We have to, as young men, hey, we're not going to be cute anymore. Like, our grandparents, our mother, our dad, our girlfriends, they all think we're cute. And hey, we're playing ball. We're in our 20s. It looks good. Hey, in about 5 or 10 years, you're not going to be cute anymore. And when you stand in line to, for that career, for that job interview, a handsome face or strong muscles or being able to jump it's not going to get you that job. It's going to be, what have you developed in terms of your skill set, in terms of how you respond to adversity? Can you respond to adversity at the corporate level? I think athletics and sports in general just gives you that opportunity to be able to perform at an extreme. There are some that are not in athletics. They're great performers, but they've never had the opportunity to perform in front of 10,000 people, have to shoot a free throw under pressure, and then still the next day walk into a classroom and sit there and listen for a college professor for 2 hours talking about X plus minus, So there's a broad sense of performance that an athlete has to go through, and they learn all of these different skill sets, and to be able to learn how to deal with that adversity from one extreme to the other, and to be able to perform, take that skill set out into life, is something that we're trying to teach them. Like, and athletics is a great way to learn some life skills. A lot of our CEOs were former athletes because they learned how to perform under pressure, or they learned how to, more so than a traditional student. Our student athletes are waking up, in most college campuses, training and then they go to class just like a traditional student, and then they have to go to study hall, and then they go to a practice, and then they go have to do their homework. They almost have like 3 full-time jobs. So their resume is built there, and that's what we're trying to teach them, those life skills. And we say winning is essential. We want them to win at whatever they do. Win the day, win your time when you wake up in the morning, win how you groom yourself, win the person who's frowning. You can win that moment by smiling. We want to win at everything. If you're standing in line at the grocery market, win that conversation, win the presence of the moment. And so we talk about that winning mindset with anything that you do. It's not just winning games, but anything you do. So that's kind of what we want those guys to learn and move on. That they got to have a level of having a good response to just any situation in life. And it may not result in winning, but it still moves you forward in life.
Yeah. No, I absolutely love that because, you know, it's so powerful to actually, it's not just about basketball, right? There's more
Mhm.
to life than basketball, of course, and especially for these kids as well. Some of them don't have any parents, and you are like a father figure to them. So
Yeah.
you being, that inspiration or that happiness when you, as soon as you come to training, it rubs off on them, right? And watching the show, honestly, it's so respectful to see how you actually stuck around
Yeah.
sometimes because
Yeah.
it can get tough sometimes, right? And
Yeah.
there was so many powerful parts, but there was one part that touched me a lot. It was like very emotional, and I just want to read that back to you if that's okay.
Okay.
Um,
Yeah. Yeah.
you said, so this was after you guys won the game. I forgot which game it was, but you was in the workout room, and you
Hmm.
said, I missed my son's game tonight. I miss my daughter's softball training too. I am here for you, and you are mad at me for wanting more for you. You are mad at me for committing to you. And
Yeah.
honestly, I was like getting emotional. My eyes started to like water. I was like,
Yeah.
wow, like this guy is definitely here to provide value for these kids.
Yeah.
And yeah, it was powerful to watch. So I really respect that. And it does show now as well after obviously the show's gone and the season's over. Kids like oh sorry, kids like Deshaun and Joe and
Mhm.
KJ Allen, they've all moved on and they've got like scholarships and stuff, right? So that's amazing
Yeah.
to see. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, they tell me don't spoil it, but yeah, all of those young men, and we've done a good job of having success with young men moving on, and that's the whole goal. It's not to be here. The goal is to come here and use basketball to move on. And if they don't move on, I almost feel like that I'm a failure because I told them, hey, you're gonna come here and you're gonna get a scholarship and move on. You're not gonna fail on my watch. You're not gonna just come here and play basketball 2 years and then go back home and work at the local market. You're going to move on. Now, when you get to the next phase, hey, I'm gonna still follow you and everything, but you're not going to fail on my watch. The only way you fail is if you completely walk out the door and don't come back, and say, I'm quitting. The only way you don't fail, if you stay here and you stick it out, you're not going to fail. And not failing doesn't mean, okay, I didn't get a Division I scholarship or this or that. It just means that you made it through and you moved on to something better. Okay, that's success to me. It doesn't mean you're going to make it to the NBA or play professional basketball, but it just means you moved on to something better and you're making, you're making positive progress.
Yeah, no, that's amazing. What's one thing that you did to get those players to stick out as a team? What was one thing that you would say that you did?
Yeah, you know what? I think sometimes uh, pointing out things that are going to affect us and really making sure that they see, just kind of sitting back and not hammering, not sometimes not over glorifying the poor habits, but allowing them to see. Sometimes I would step back and allow them to see their behavior. And that's what you see there. Sometimes I'll step back and say, you know what? Sometimes it's better to ignore the negative behavior and praise the positive behavior. So praising the positive behavior and ignoring the negative behavior, and letting that negative behavior or negative response or negative performance kind of look at itself and say, okay, I don't belong here. If I want to be a part of this, then I need to be a part of the solution, rather than part of the problem. And I think it's just a feel, man. As a coach, a lot of the great coaches have this feel where you understand how to get them to see that, without degrading them, allowing them to see that this is not going to be the way we're going to have success. And so sometimes you got to take a step back and let them look and let them have small failures, so that they realize that what you're telling them is what's right. And they say, you know what, he told us that we shouldn't do that. We see the small failure, but don't allow them to fail so much that they fall flat on their face. You may allow them to fail in the game a little bit. Sometimes I'll let guys, they make a mistake, and I'll let them make a mistake a little bit so that they can see that they stand out making those mistakes, versus me allowing us to lose the game. Okay. So I'll allow them to fall a little bit, maybe fall off the bike one time, versus allowing them to roll down the hill, straight down the hill, and fall off the bike.
Yeah.
So that's kind of the way I see it, and kind of the mindset. Yeah.
That's amazing. Yeah. No. What would you say, Coach, that's been your biggest achievement so far?
Is seeing these young men at the next level. In the show, they talk about winning a state championship. That's just one game. Every year, when you think about it, every year, whether it's the NBA, soccer, football, whatever sport, when we talk about a championship, there's only one team that didn't lose. Every other team has lost, their last game. One team did not lose. So the percentages of you winning a championship is very slim. Of course, we would love that. But for me, the biggest achievement is when I see young men and I'm looking at television and I'm watching the channel and I'm watching my former players playing on television somewhere. And then I look at Twitter and they're saying, hey, I graduated, I got my bachelor's degree. To me, those are the biggest accomplishments. And seeing that they took these life skill lessons, and now they're having careers, whether it's whatever career they're getting their degrees, and they're having careers and they're having families, and they saw some of the values here, and I can see some of the values that were planted, the seeds that were planted here. I can see it in their lives. To me, that's the biggest accomplishment.
Yeah, that's amazing. No, that's amazing. And I know that you are a religious person, and that comes off a lot in the show as well. If people haven't watched it, and there was a point where I don't want to spoil it too much for people if they haven't watched it, but there was a point where you said that people need love when they don't deserve it the most, or it was like kind of a quote like that,
Yeah.
right? And there was a point where you were praying with Joe, and that was a very very inspiring thing to see as well.
Yeah.
I just want to ask you, how do you how do you, I know that because you're a religious person, you have God on your side, right? Of course, I'm a religious person myself too, but how do you overcome fear, fear of failure or anything like that? Like, how do you overcome that yourself?
Well, you just kind of not make it about yourself. If I make it about myself, then that pressure is there, to try to meet a certain expectation. But if I make it about trying to, for me, I just try to please God in everything I do. If that focus is there, and then I think that's what takes the pressure off of the. If I'm just thinking I have to win a championship, and I haven't won one yet, uh, I would feel like I'm a failure. But ultimately, my goal is to please God, and if I keep the focus on others, then I think that takes away the fear of failing. Although I felt like I let the guys down. Well, I don't want to give it away. I let them down. Could have felt that way towards the end, but those are, sometimes they're things that are out of your control. But if you focus on others, I think there's no way that you can have that sense of failure if we focus on serving and serving others. I think there's a great amount of satisfaction and sense of accomplishment and fulfillment if we could just serve others. Yeah.
Yeah, when you do something for someone else, more good things come to you, right? And that's
Mhm.
definitely true. Yeah. Uh, what's the season been like this year now for you? As because obviously because of COVID, and obviously there was COVID last year too. But has it been much different for you guys? Is like I don't know if you're allowed to say this. Like, are they filming again or no?
Well, it's talks,
Yeah.
but yeah, I'm not at liberty to say any of that. But um, for us, Los Angeles is probably the absolute worst in terms of where we've gone in terms of moving forward. So I haven't seen my players in a year. So I think the rest of the world is moving forward. Here in California is the worst, and then Los Angeles is the absolute worst. So if I'm frustrated about anything, if I have a little bit of anger, if I'm out of line on anything, it's for that cause that I'm very frustrated, and my frustration is turning into anger that we have leadership, whether it's our country, whether it's our state, whether it's our city, we have leadership that has not figured out uh, how to help us engage our students, and we haven't been able to do that. And it's really discouraging because at this point, I'm not sure it's even about COVID-19 or being safe. There may be something politically going on, but
Mm.
right now we have young men that you saw, Joe Hampton, Deshaun, young men that are hurting that need this, and they don't have access to it because the doors are still closed to everything here in Los Angeles.
Yeah.
And I don't want to get too far into it. I may start getting a little frustrated and angry about it because there are some doors open in certain businesses that benefit other people. But if we're talking about trying to benefit young men that are out on the streets, those doors should be open and they're not. And so it's kind of frustrating. It's kind of a little bit of hypocrisy in
Mm.
regards to saying you really care about people. And we're saying, you know what? We don't even care about playing basketball. Just allow us to engage the student. And that hasn't happened.
Yeah, no, of course, of course. So just last question now for you, Coach, before I let you go. I know that obviously you are a bit busy guy. What would you tell your younger self if you could go back in time?
Um, Man, what would I tell my younger self? My life has changed so much. It would be, uh, man, that's a good question. You got me stumped there. I believe if I because I had a great life, man. I mean, I have a great family, a great wife, and you know what, man, all the lessons that we learn when we're younger and the mistakes that we've made and some of the things that I've made, it's all led up until now. It's made me into the person that I am. It's hard to say what would I go tell myself, because if I told myself some things, and maybe I may have been a little self-righteous, I may have been a little too perfect. I needed to make some of those mistakes that I made in the past. I needed to run into the people that I ran into. So I think God is sovereign in how he develops us. And I think everything was, for his purpose. So it's hard for me to say what would I tell my younger self uh, in terms of how my life has unfolded. There are some things I would tell myself as a basketball player, like maybe worked on this more or worked on that more, but
Mm.
that's irrelevant in a sense of what my purpose is. In terms of what my purpose is, I think God was sovereign, and he sovereignly did everything how it was supposed to happen. All the bad that happened to me was supposed to happen. All the good was supposed to happen to me. All the adversity, anything I went through, the people I've come in contact with was supposed to happen. And so I can't live with any regrets with other than the fact that, man, maybe I could have been a little bit better basketball player. Maybe I could have had a better jumper in that regard. Yeah.
It's such an incredible answer, honestly. Everything happens for a reason, and everything that's led you to where you are at the moment is
Hmm.
for a reason, right? Like
Hmm.
that's such an incredible answer. I really like the answer. But yeah, no, thank you so much, Coach, for doing
Absolutely.
this. I really respect your time. What I'll do, guys, I'll leave Coach Mosley's social media down below. Go and check him out. I know you're new to the social media game.
Man, I just started. It's so crazy. 2, 3 weeks ago, I started Instagram, and I had my kids doing it a little bit. Then I did it, and now I'm like, do I really have to follow and like? And I think we connected through DM,
Yeah.
and so I'm like, okay, I'm trying to make sure I don't miss those DM messages for those who want to do interviews or any. So it's a lot. It's added an extra job to my life. So which I knew it would, and that's why I said I don't want to tweet. I don't want to do any of that because I have to respond to it, and you have to really engage in it and
Yeah.
be a part of that world. And I didn't want to be a part, but the show hit. They were like, "You have to get social media. You have to get going." And I'm like, okay,
Yeah,
you
you
know,
never know where it's going to lead you, right? Yeah, no, for
absolutely.
sure. But yeah, no, thank you so much again. I really respect you as a person. If you haven't watched the Last Chance You basketball edition, go and watch it, guys. Honestly, it's incredible. You won't be disappointed at all. But yeah, no, thanks again, Coach.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.